Hey, group leaders, the Pastor Ryan here with another one of our group leader training session videos. I hope you're doing well. I hope you have had a wonderful summer. I know many of our groups have taken some time off this summer. So, to those group leaders, I want to encourage you and remind you to make sure that as you get back into the regular rhythms and routines of meeting regularly with your group, to please be sure and contact your group members. Let them know when you're getting started back. If there's members you haven't seen for a while, be sure to touch base with them too. We would love for them to join us as we kick things back off for the fall here at First and SB. Today's group leader video has to do with something I think is pretty practical that either you have dealt with, you are dealing with, or you will definitely deal with in the future as a group leader, and that is how to deal with an overly talkative group member. So let's get into it. I've had them in groups that I have led. Chances are you've had them in groups that you have led, and they're not these individuals, like they're not terrible people. They just tend to talk too much. And talking too much can cause problems. Here are three quick problems that can be caused in your group by an overly talkative group member. Number one, an overly talkative group member dominates discussion and very oftentimes ends up leading your group down rabbit holes that have absolutely nothing to do with the curriculum or the material that you're trying to cover for that night. It's very possible you could go a group session and look back and say, I don't know that we got hardly anything done because so and so wouldn't quit talking. And that's a problem. Another reason that group members that are overly talkative are a problem is that there are times when talkative group members will end up saying some things that might not be appropriate for the group setting. They might end up touching on some real sensitive areas that others in your group might not be ready to hear. And then you've got to do some damage control to just check on everybody that's involved to make sure that everybody's okay. I can't believe they said that. Well, they did. And now we've got to deal with it. And at times, that can be a problem. The third reason that overly talkative group members can cause a problem is that when they talk so much, others don't. Ideally, when your group gathers to meet, there are multiple voices that are giving feedback and input and answers to questions you might be asking. But if one person is the only one doing all of that, then there's not an opportunity for others in the group to contribute. And we're not here to partake in a monologue. We want our group sessions to be a dialogue where everyone has input. And if one person dominates discussion, again, that can cause a problem. So, what do you do? How do you handle a situation where you've got a group member that is talking too much? Well, here's a few things to consider. Number one, consider your layout or your space, like how your group physically sits together. This has a lot more to do with human psychology than anything else. Picture this. Your group gathers, maybe you're seated around a table or you're in some sort of circle type structure with a bunch of chairs. When you open questions to your group setting and you're just waiting on people to answer, traditionally, typically, you're looking at people in your group to answer those questions. When you make eye contact with somebody, that tells that individual that you're wanting an answer from them. The problem is, if you make eye contact with your overly talkative group member, you have just given them the green light to go and to talk and to contribute probably too much to your group session. So, a way to remedy this is when your group gets together and they physically sit around whatever they're sitting around, position yourself as a group leader directly beside that overly talkative group member. This does two things. One is it allows you to be really like physically close with that overly talkative group member, and that inherently might squelch some of the talking too much. The second is that as you're posing the questions and opening the floors for discussion, you're actually looking at the other group members more than you are to the person directly to your right or directly to your left. This opens the floor for other people to get your eye contact and feel like they can then contribute rather than the person who's talking too much. Again, a lot more human psychology than it is anything else. The second way that we can help this problem is that we could actually limit how often we just open the floor for questions. Now, does that mean you shouldn't ask questions in small group? Absolutely not. But the way that you ask them is important. Instead of asking questions for contributions from your group in an open ended format, approach specific group members by name, asking John, what do you think about this? Susie, what did you like about this week's reading? Addressing them individually tells everyone in the group that you're looking for an answer from that specific person. If you open the floor up for general discussion and it's just awkward silence, that overly talkative group member is going to take that as an opportunity to fill that silence with their own voice. And they'll do that really, really well. Another way to consider this is by approaching group leaders prior to group members, prior to the group time. Maybe in your prep for group that week, you can consider who in my group would be good to answer this question, and maybe shoot them a text and say, hey, as we get together for group this week, I'd really love to hear your thoughts about question 4 or question 5. That way they can come prepared to have some sort of answer to that question for that evening. Again, approaching specific group members by name with the opportunity to contribute limits the opportunity your overly talkative group member has to contribute. The third thing to consider is the idea of interject and redirect. As group leaders, you're going to have to stay on your toes when your overly talkative group member is talking. Again, we don't want to not have them contribute at all. We just want to recognize that if they're talking too much, then it's probably hurting the group session altogether. So there's going to be prime opportunities. There's going to be split second examples where they'll have to stop and breathe, or they'll have to stop and think about what they're saying. If they've talked for an extended period of time, and you can tell, you can kind of get a sense of this as a leader that, hey, I really need to interject here. Do it. Step in. Acknowledge the comments that they have made. Be positive and affirming and encouraging. But then make sure that you as the leader have stepped in to end their contributions and allow others in the group to give you theirs. This is a skill. You got to hone. This gets honed. This isn't something that most of us naturally do because for many of us, myself included, it often feels like I'm being rude or that I'm cutting somebody off. We got to be careful about how we do it, but there's a way to interject and get us back on topic respectfully. Then we redirect. Like I mentioned earlier, overly talkative people can chase rabbits and lead us far away from our curriculum as possible. As a group leader, it's your responsibility and my responsibility to make sure that we can redirect the conversation back to the curriculum or the material that we had originally anticipated to cover for that evening. Interject and redirect. And lastly, this might take a one-on-one private conversation with that overly talkative group member. I would encourage that these never take place in front of the group. People can hear any sort of comments about them talking too much as shameful or demeaning, and we don't want that at all. So any conversations that occur with this member need to be in private. They need to be done respectfully, littered with encouragement and grace. But most of the time, at least in my experience, these individuals who are just talking too much actually aren't even aware that they're talking too much. They're not even conscious of it. So a respectful one-on-one conversation acknowledges the fact that you do appreciate their contributions, but that we want to make sure that everyone else in the group has an opportunity to give their input and feedback as well. These are 4 quick ways that we can address an overly talkative group member. Like I said, they have been in groups that you've led. They either are in groups now or they will be in groups that you lead in the future. And these are really practical ways to help us address when a group member is just talking too much. Thanks for checking out this month's group leader training video. Love you guys and take care. We'll see you next time.